Warzone has become an essential pillar in the Battle Royale space since its launch 4 years ago. However, just 9 months after launch, Raven would add something that would completely change Warzone forever. I'm of course talking about Resurgence on Rebirth Island. This was a new take on the Battle Royale genre, and arguably is now the more popular game mode in Warzone. Today we're going to be discussing the ongoing argument of Battle Royale versus Resurgence and breaking down each mode's pros and cons. I'm going to be keeping it as objective as possible, but I will still be giving my opinions along the way. Comment which mode you like more and let's get started. Let's start with the most dramatic change between the two game modes, which is obviously the pacing. With Battle Royale, if you make it to the end game and win, you're looking at about 25 minutes of your time. Compare that to Resurgence, where your game will rarely last more than 15 minutes total. The amount of times that I've played Battle Royale, landed in, looted up for 10 minutes, have our loadout, make our first rotation just to get laced by someone camping on a rooftop is infuriating. And this will quickly eat up your precious time gaming if it happens multiple games in a row, which if you're like me, it does. That 10-minute game where you died in the second or third circle in Battle Royale is the equivalent of an end game in Resurgence. That is if you can make it 10 minutes in Resurgence. Let's not act like Resurgence is innocent in this regard either. You'll have those Resurgence games where it just turns into spawn die simulator because you can't even touch the ground. With respawns, you could have just one teammate having an extremely mid game but just playing good enough to keep the whole entire squad alive, just for them to not even have a chance to get back on their feet. Literally. This removes the chance of any and all fun you had all game. With the pacing being much faster in Resurgence, it kind of bends the rules of even being a Battle Royale in the first place, but definitely expedites the gameplay for a more streamlined experience. On the other hand, if you're more so into tactical rotations on a large scale map with more people, maybe Battle Royale is for you. For a small period of time, they had massive Resurgence mode, which I think was in Warzone 2 on Al Mazrah, which I thought was a ton of fun. Kind of was a nice middle ground between the two modes, and it's something I would love to see come back. For me personally, I enjoy being able to jump right back into the action in Resurgence more than Battle Royale, but Battle Royale definitely takes the cake when it comes to my next point. With different pacing comes a different style of gameplay. We all know these modes play on different maps, and the Battle Royale maps are much larger than any Resurgence map for obvious reasons. At least in my experience, I change my loadout dramatically based off of what game mode I'm playing. I, for one, always run a sniper in Battle Royale because of how much more opportunity there is for it. Meanwhile, in Resurgence, where you can snipe and find some success if you really want to, but overall, you're probably better off running a mid to long range AR and then a very close range SMG of some sort. Sniping is something that I think is essential to any Battle Royale, just because of how satisfying and rewarding it is, and that is something that Resurgence simply doesn't have going for it. I know I literally just said it. I'm not saying you cannot snipe in Resurgence. You can do just fine in it, but it's definitely not like a meta play by any means. Another major gameplay difference is how aggressive you can play in each mode. Since you have respawns in Resurgence, if you really want to go full aggro in each encounter, you can, which makes high kill game potential a major focus of the game mode. This spawned the whole TikTok movement demons who utilize every movement exploit in the game to frag out and break every camera in sight. On the BR side of things, you've got your gulag and buybacks, which sure like kind of give you a little bit of a cushion, but you never have a definite respawn, which drastically changes the gameplay. I for one play much slower in Battle Royale and think about every decision before it's made and really just play for wins. Call it ratty, but if I find a good building that's in circle, I'm not leaving it until I absolutely have to. We've established how the modes play differently, but let's compare the Resurgence maps to the Battle Royale maps. For Resurgence, we've had Rebirth Island, Fortune's Keep, Ashika Island, and Vondel. And for Battle Royale, we've had Verdansk, Caldera, Al Mazrah, and Urzikstan. The only thing really holding back the Battle Royale maps is just the existence of Caldera overall. Seriously, what a horrible map. But then the other three maps I have almost no complaints with. Then for Resurgence maps, they're all near perfect. For some reason, Fortune's Keep and Ashika got a lot of hate, but I like both these maps just fine. Honestly, I think I like both of them more than Vondel. The map design in Warzone as a whole has been phenomenal, and again, really just comes down to preference. Each map does exactly what it wants to achieve for each game mode in a very good way. Now, what I mean by gratification is the maximum satisfaction the player can achieve when playing each game mode. For starters, a standard Battle Royale win isn't something you come across too often, so when you catch a win, you feel pretty dang terrific about yourself. Not only this, but a lot of matches have sort of a narrative or a storyline to them. What I mean by this is like maybe something like your squad's truck got ambushed and you had to improvise and continue your journey on foot during like a really big rotation, or a teammate gets a flare off right before you die and then you go buy him back and you turn the whole game around and end up winning. Basically what I'm saying, with the longer and larger mode, there's more opportunities like this than in Resurgence. Not saying these things don't happen in Resurgence, they definitely do, but not to the same degree or near as often. Speaking of Resurgence, let's talk about a win in Resurgence now. We'll use Fortune's Keep for example, where you have 13 teams in quads, which is already about half the amount of teams in Battle Royale, which makes a win way more likely starting off. Throw in respawns in a small map, and if you really want to play for the win, you absolutely can. Maybe not in ranked, but we'll talk about that later. There's plenty of games in Resurgence where the whole squad is just playing like dog water, but you're playing just good enough to stay alive, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, but the win is somehow still very possible. And just maybe you'll weasel that win, and the void of unsatisfaction is very present. This kind of goes back to the high kill game potential being the focal point of Resurgence now. I know I'm the same way, where I would much rather have a 20 kill 7th place game over a 6 kill victory, which is honestly pretty stupid. Yet here I am. Resurgence almost feels like I'm just going for kills rather than playing the objective. This really goes back to the question, is Resurgence really even considered a battle royale at this point? I think that's up for debate and maybe a video for another day, but definitely something to think about. Overall, the gratification on battle royale is far superior than that of Resurgence. If you watched my Why Was Warzone 2 Hated So Much video, you would know that for Warzone Ranked, I kinda didn't really believe in Ranked and Battle Royale. That all changed once it was added to Warzone 2. After giving it a shot and playing it a considerable amount, I think I ended up making it to Diamond in Warzone 2. It was a great addition to the franchise. However, in Warzone's most recent update, they added Ranked, but only to Resurgence, and I actually find this a way better version of Warzone Ranked. For starters, the death fee is a really interesting concept that kind of really makes you prioritize staying alive and disrupts the Resurgence like aggro playstyle in a good way. And once you get to the higher ranks, a death nullifies any kill you get, and then some actually. It turns Resurgence into a much more cautious game while still rewarding playing aggressive. Compare this to Battle Royale, which didn't have a death fee whatsoever, yet still rewarded players who would camp and just kind of like try and make it to the end game with only 1 or 2 kills. Not saying you can't do this in Resurgence Ranked, but it is much harder to do. The higher kill potential in Resurgence also makes for dramatic SR gains that I don't think were present in Battle Royale Ranked whatsoever. But like I said, right now there is no Ranked in Battle Royale right now, and they can definitely make some changes to create a more competitive version of Ranked on Urzikstan. But I guess we'll have to see. So which game mode is superior? Well, I think that's a question you have to answer yourself. If I have to be honest, I prefer Resurgence, and if you watch my streams, which you totally should, that's all I play on there, mainly because of how fast you can get back into the action, not only between entire games, but gunfights. However, if I had to pick one mode to stay in the game forever, it's undoubtedly Battle Royale. There's a certain charm behind Battle Royale that you can't get with Resurgence, and I think that all goes back to the gratification point. When I think of Warzone, I think of Battle Royale, and at its core, this is what created the game we know and love today. Without Battle Royale, there is no Resurgence. I think Resurgence was made to appeal to the sweats, which make up the majority of the player base, and that's why it's become the most popular game mode. Also, I think COVID and TikTok ruined the average person's attention span, and Resurgence definitely gets a hold on those kinds of people, myself included. But to say one game mode is objectively better than the other is honestly kinda stupid. If you want to argue that Resurgence isn't even a Battle Royale, I would definitely hear you out on that, hence why the wins aren't near as satisfying. I totally understand the pros and cons of both, but I prefer Resurgence in most scenarios. But that wraps up Resurgence versus Battle Royale. Keep in mind, this was just my opinion. Please let me know what game mode you play more. Check out my other Warzone videos. Be on the lookout for my live streams right here on YouTube. Don't even have to go to another app. Join my Discord if you're feeling crazy. And if you liked, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Comment if you like. And thank you so much for watching.